Yeah, I can't I can't refuse him. He just gets very persistent sometimes. So
That's okay. That's the new Paul Carney for tonight.
He'll take place. I was just going to say that. He'll take Paul's place.
We'll just refer to that cat as Paul Carney, right?
his name is AA Ron.
That is amazing. That is so amazing. Because I know that skit. That's a great skit.
We just call him Aaron though most of the time.
AA Ron. That's so good.
Listen, Kristen, you can keep that cat the entire meeting. It makes it the entire meeting. I'll be.
He's got his own mind, so I can't commit to anything here. But
As most cats do. Hi, Steve.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I also talked to Rich Wenner. He's not, or nobody from the firm is going to make it. I didn't think it was a problem, so I spoke to him earlier today. So with that, we are going to get started. Hopefully Paul will join us. If he doesn't, hold on. I'm called the agenda. All right, we're going to get started. Statement for compliance is the meeting for the Vernon Township MUA, April 15th, 2021. Statement of compliance pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this regular meeting has been provided to the public and the press on January 20th, 2021 by delivering to the press such notice and posting the same at the municipal building and file with the office of the township clerk. Salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call of members. Danelle.
Mike Fury.
Now, before we get started, why don't we introduce somebody?
Yes, Jacqueline is on. She is our new assistant here
Hey,
in the
everybody.
building.
Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
And Jacqueline's
Hello,
hours,
Jacqueline.
just so that everybody here knows, they're Monday through Thursday, 9 to 2. And then she'll be here Thursday nights when we have meetings instead of being here during the day.
All right, good. Well, welcome, Jacqueline. Welcome to our team.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Go ahead, Danelle.
Yep, so Mike Fury,
Here.
Andrew Pitzker,
Present.
Kristen Wheaton,
Present.
Dave McDermott,
Here.
Harry Shortway,
Present.
Paul Carney is absent. Our professionals that we have here, myself, the administrator, Donnell Bright, Jacqueline McCabe, our recording secretary, Howie Leisure, our licensed operator, and Steve Benoski, our engineer.
Okay, yeah. We'll get right into it. We'll make a motion to open to the public.
Motion open to the public comments.
Second.
Motion by
second.
Andy. No, too late there, Dave.
Okay.
Motion by Andy Pittsburgh, seconded by Harry Shortway. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Danelle, is anybody from the public?
I do not see anybody raising their hands. There's nothing in the chat or the Q&A box. So I think that you can move on. Also, we did not receive any phone calls or emails.
Good.
Make a motion to close the floor to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, we'll move on to number 6, approval of the bills, resolution 21-29. Did everybody have a chance to review the lengthy list of bills?
I do.
I do have a question to Danelle,
Sure.
and I was looking for it because I know I approved it through the app.
Mhm.
Was there anything in the bills related to, because I looked and I couldn't find it, to the DPW workers?
Not
had-
on
you
this
had-
bills list, not on this bills list, but
Bill-
you did recently approve the requisition, so I just created it as a purchase order a couple of days ago. So that'll be
Right.
on the next bills list. And just so you
Okay.
know, I mean, you guys can review it at that time, but we do, as we know, we have the shared service with the township to cover in case anybody is out sick or vacation or anything like that. So the majority of those days we're covering those sick. There was a couple of sick days, and then we also have somebody who was on military duty was called in, so they covered that. And then the one day we did have one of the DPW workers help when we installed the monster, the muffin monster.
So all that's going to be on the next bills list, so just look
Yes.
out for that.
Yep.
I've had some questions about why we were bringing them in. Danelle did clear that up with me, so hopefully it's cleared up with everybody else. Occasionally, we're going to have to call in DPW workers as backup in case one of them are not there. So, we'll move on with that. Anything else on the bills list? Anybody have any questions, concerns?
I do. You had, on Mike's Mobile, there was a catch. I want to know who caught the 8 hours and brought it down to 5 hours. There were a couple of charges there.
That was me.
That was you?
Yeah.
How did that get recorded as 8? And then, I'm glad you caught it, but where
So
was,
it was the original quote. So we had we were talking about, I was speaking with Mike about the quote specifically. So when we got the invoice in, they invoiced us for 8. I wanted to make sure it was 8. I mean, I
Okay.
wasn't physically there. So I just wanted to make sure we were being billed for the correct amount, because when I first spoke with Mike, he didn't think it was going to take the full 8 hours.
right?
So I was just double checking.
All right, well, I did see that, and I just like, okay, why the change? And then I'm glad you caught that, so thank you.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, I had questions about that too, Danelle, because it didn't. So you asked, because it was an emergency, you asked for a quote, he gave you an estimate, he submitted a bill. It didn't quite match up to what actually happened, but it's all cleared up now, right?
Yeah, it's all, we're all good.
Okay, good.
So any other concerns or questions from anybody?
None.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve the bills list, resolution 21-29?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills as presented.
And I'll second that.
All right, motion by Dave McDermott, seconded by Andy Pittsger. Roll call. Danelle?
Mike Fury,
Yes.
Harry Shortway.
I'm going to abstain at this time because some of those bills I was not on the MUA at the time.
Okay, Kristen Wheaton,
Yes.
Andrew Pittsger,
Yes,
Dave McDermott.
Yes.
All right, moving on. There's no minutes to review. I have a question about the minutes.
Yep.
Are we up to date on all the minutes? Or we're just.
So we have the last 2 meetings, the March 18th and the April 1st, and I already spoke with Jacqueline today. We'll be moving on those after this meeting.
Okay, good. That'll be on the next meeting.
Yes.
All right, good. All right, resolutions, none at this time. We'll go. Let me ask you, I don't see anybody on from Sussex. Is there anybody on from the borough of Sussex, Danelle or
No,
Bob on or anything?
I believe that he did receive the link. I did email him to double check, but I didn't hear back from him. I did tell him though that, so I had emailed back and forth with Bob, and he had put me in touch with their engineer. So their engineer reached out regarding the RFP for the emergency services, which is like further down on our list. So I've been
Okay.
communicating with him because we really just need some updated information what Sussex Borough is looking for. I think we're,
Right.
yeah.
All right, well, we'll bring that up in the meeting. We'll discuss it when that time comes. All right, so we're gonna go right to the subcommittee reports. The pump station, transfer station. I'm gonna turn that over to Steve to give us an update on what's going on with the design of the pump station.
Sure. So, per our previous discussions, we are progressing the design of the pump station. Not necessarily the transfer station at this point, but the pump station. We're hoping to have some preliminary plans as early as tomorrow. That, one of our first goals there is to either by this group or certainly someone like Howie to get some input from him to make or him or whoever to make sure that we are on the same page on what we're thinking is going to be designed or included before we get too far down the road. So that would be kind of the first step, is just for either Howie or this group to take a look and to see if we're meeting the expectations for what's going to be included for the pump station. So we are progressing that. One thing that we're working through is a report was done a few years back which determined essentially a design flow rate for the pump station, which we have and we're working with. The thing that report did not include was the future build out flows from Mountain Creek, which has the potential to be quite significant if what they have, I'm not maybe perhaps using the terminology correctly, but what they have, I'm not sure if it's master plan or general development plan. If what they have on record for that were to ever be built, which may be, certainly if it's realistic, it's not anytime soon, that would significantly increase the flows to the pump station. So we'll probably put together a memo on this to perhaps get input from Mountain Creek. I don't know. But if you were to even design something to accommodate all that flow in the future, it would be quite different than what you would need now. So we just want to make sure that everyone's going to be on the same page as far as how that's accommodated, be it the MUA and Mountain Creek, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Steve, I have a question.
Sure.
Going back to, it's two questions. Going back to the transfer station, where we're not going to put the transfer station in the design, but the design can accommodate in the future a retrofit of the pump station if needed. Is that the intention?
Yes.
All right,
yes.
good.
Yep. But and then accommodating those future flows from Mountain Creek, that's even a whole different thing. Which maybe it's not wise to even try to accommodate that, or maybe it's wise to accommodate something in between.
Well, no, that was my next question.
Yep.
So that's good. We want to be able to retrofit a transfer station. We don't want to hold up to the design of the pump station. I think it's probably the best, and I think you said it, is to reach out to Mountain Creek with a technical memo. Don't slow down the design process and process, but to kind of reach out to them and say, with those questions, because obviously they impact the design of the pump station. So, but you got to get feedback from Mountain Creek to get you a final design. But I really think it's critical, with all the funding and everything going on and trying to get funding, is to get a permit application and a design document down to DEP as fast as possible. Okay. Because they are, and I know you know this, and I know it because I deal with them every day. They are incredibly slow. Yeah. They're almost to the point where they don't even respond sometimes, and that's not good. So, I think you got to get the design down there in their hands. Yep. And then get them to sign off that the application is complete, right? That's the goal. Technical, you submitted what you had to. Yep. Then we wait for the DEP to make the next move. So the faster we move getting something to them, I think everyone agrees. The pump station is failing, and there's issues, and we're probably a year away from building it and putting a new pump station there, maybe even more. We're going to try to keep the pump station, working for now, the faster we do this, the better off we're going to be. Anybody have any questions for?
Well, yes, because the town center is responsible for 99,000 gallons per day, correct? And Mountain
Right.
Creek is responsible for 166,000 per day. So we will have to accommodate that in the plans. I mean, isn't that what the whole financial agreement's about? Is to accommodate the town center growth at the 99,000 and the 166,000 by Mountain Creek. Total of 265,000 gallons per day. So we'd have to accommodate that in the plan.
Okay, I don't think I was
Right.
aware of those specific numbers, but that is, but we will look at that.
Yeah, that's important because I was going to follow up with Harry's point that he's making. Do you happen to know from the town center, and this has always been a question, and I don't really know the answer, and maybe somebody knows it, maybe Howie knows it. We know the pretty much the flow coming from the town center compared to what's coming from Mountain Creek, right? Is that an accurate statement? Like we have flow readings that we know, Mountain Creek flows this much waste, and then the town center we have this much. And
Yeah,
the reason
so I
why
think
I'm saying, Go
I
ahead.
believe we know what's coming from the town center, the newer pump station. We know what's coming from the Black Creek pump station, and we know what's coming from the the nearest manhole to the pump station being replaced. So we have those three are known quantities.
Right. So that's a factor, obviously, in the design when we reach out to Mountain Creek, because we have to. It's an interesting, Steve. Like, you don't want to over design it and make the pump station too big, and
Right.
then you don't want to make it too small, and that's
Yep.
that's you gotta almost think like what design it for what it actually is, and then with a factor in there to plan for future growth.
Right. And so one thing, for example, if you were to get that full build out from Mountain Creek and the additional, and whatever it's going to be for the town center, I think at that point your force main pipe probably isn't even good, but that's obviously something that would have to be addressed down the road.
Yeah, that leads to the other question. When we're doing this force main evaluation, that's the information that's critical. That leads us to why we're doing a force main evaluation, is because whatever we design at pump station 2 is going to have an impact on that force main, which is that force main coming from pump station 2 down is the weakest link in the entire system. That was the case when Suez owned it, and it's still the case now. So, obviously we're going to evaluate that, and it's a distinct possibility that we're going to have to install a new force main. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but based on whatever the force main evaluation shows us.
You
Now, I know
may be
this.
able to sleeve that, right? Steve, couldn't you possibly sleeve the force main?
Right, but the problem might not be like the structural condition. The problem may be the hydraulic capacity once you've got to that high flow rate.
Right.
And Steve,
Yeah.
have you had the opportunity to read the financial agreement with the town and Mountain Creek over the pump house?
I don't think I have seen that, no.
Perhaps Danelle, you could send that to Steve, because
Yes.
you'll see the finances. Mountain Creek was responsible for replacing that pump house, I want to say as early as 2008. They
Right.
dodged a bullet in 2012. They didn't replace it by 2013 as promised. And they're financially liable for that. And you'll see in the financial agreement we have with them, it's in the footnote, I want to say like page 7 or whatever. It's expressed what their payments will be per month. So we're going to have to build it out to at least that minimum based on those agreements.
Yep. I know we had a meeting with them this week, or, regarding the transfer station, and they mentioned a couple, number of units and things of that nature, but I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah. Danelle, please share that with everybody if you have it.
Yeah,
including
I'm
Steve?
also working, Steve just mentioned about the numbers. There's a couple other items they asked about. They want to know projected revenues for the transfer station. They want to know how it affects, the developer contributions, how it affects, things just moving forward. And they also want like kind of a draft, basically amortization schedule for their bond schedule and what that would look like. So once I get like a preliminary number, I'm working off like a 2 million, 2.1 million right now. Then I can give them a real, you know, an estimate on what their bond schedule would look like.
Right.
But I'll share all of that with the board.
All right, thanks. No, thanks, Steve. When did I asked this before? When can you expect to submit something to DEP? I don't mind looking it over and how we should have input and everyone should have some input. But I'd like to look it over before you send it, everyone.
Yes, definitely.
When do you expect? Yeah, when do you expect to submit something? By end of April, middle May? What do you think?
Middle of May.
All right, good.
And-
All right,
and
so
when-
that's what we're gonna. Go ahead, Harry.
Mike, when's the force main evaluation to be completed?
It's scheduled for the 27th, I believe, the week of the 27th, and then
Of
we were
April?
actually gonna.
Right, but we aren't looking
Actually-
at that, and we're looking at the other force main, aren't we?
Yeah, so we're looking at 2 force mains. Is this on the agenda, Danelle, or not? Because I know we talked about it.
To put that on the agenda, no, I was just gonna update.
All right, well, give us an update on the force main evaluation, because I know what's going on. Let everybody
Yeah,
know.
so the force main evaluation, I confirmed today, that it will be scheduled for the 27th through the 29th. So those days, and then the pressure gauge is gonna be installed on that Friday, the 30th. We've been trying, and Steve knows this, we've been trying to get in touch with Ferraro, and I feel like they disappeared for like a month and a half. But we're good now. They got back to us this week on Monday and they were like, oh, we're available this time. So luckily, Fred Cook, who's running the CCTV footage, is available those days as well. So it will be taken care of. Yeah.
Danelle, just so I you know how I feel about this is, you're like, we can't delay this. If Ferraro can't do this, we're going to get a different contractor. I'm not going to tolerate them saying, oh, they can only work certain days. They're going to block out the entire week and they're going to get it done, because the job is pretty complicated, and Howie is going to coordinate this with them and make sure everything is done right, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and they have to dedicate people there so nothing does go wrong, because it does have to be pretty well planned out. And I'd like to see Howie kind of make sure that happens. But what's really important, and this is how I feel, if it's not done by the end of April, we're finding a different contractor. And then we're going to have to start over and look for a different contractor and then go through the whole process again, because I'm not tolerating it. This is unacceptable that these people have just signed a contract and then disappeared. It's not acceptable.
Mike,
So,
is this the force main that runs parallel to the railroad tracks to the floor of the valley, through the wetlands?
Yeah, there's 2 of them. Yeah, there's the force main that goes right along the railroad track. That's one of them. And the other force main that's being evaluated is up in the condos area. That's coming from pump station number 3. Right, Steve? It's like that's the 2 force mains.
I thought we were only looking at one force main, Mike.
I thought, now maybe you can correct me.
Is it 2?
It is.
I thought, yeah,
Yeah,
because the pressure gauge has
there's
to be done
one-
at pump station 2 for the other force main.
Right. There's 2 force mains that are being evaluated, coming from pump station 3 up in the condos area, which is hilly and goes up, and that's why you have to put air relief valves in. And then there's the one right along the tracks, which is really the force main that has issues. So those 2 force mains are going to get evaluated. And I know Howie's, familiar with it. In order to evaluate those 2 force mains, it's going to be quite a, effort to he has to have to work with the contractor to make sure everything goes right. So, it better be well planned, because if it's not well planned, because I know how the system works, that there'll be issues, and we don't want issues. We don't want spills. We don't want things. We don't want any, we don't want anything to go wrong. So it better be planned well by the contractor. So I would like to know is to have a definitive schedule from Ferraro, exactly what they're going to do on every day, like for that week. So that would help Howie. That would help you make sure that it gets done right. So any questions about the force main evaluation or pump station 2?
No, I just have a question. We are doing both force mains? So I was under the
So I was,
impression-
we're not doing CCTV inspection of the one at Pump Station 2. I just have it for a pressure gauge installation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's detailed in the proposal and the
Right.
plan
Right.
that was done by McDonald.
Yeah,
It-
we're only
it's
doing footage of the one up in the condos.
Correct.
Mike, when did this RFP go out?
Last
When did
summer.
the first one go out? The first one went out last summer. There were a lot of things that were wrong with it, and it included all of the work to be done. So we got quotes that were way beyond what we were originally quoted at from the engineer. So from the former engineer. So what we did was we went out the end of last year. Was that November, October? We split it up into 3 different things so that we could get more vendors, more contractors to bid on it, which saved us money too, because to have a contractor who doesn't handle CCTV inspection, then they're paying their rate to the CCTV person to come out and we pay on top of that, right? So we bid it out 3 separate jobs and we're able to finally get some better pricing on it.
How long is that 10-inch main to the valley? Anybody have a general idea?
The one coming off Pump Station 2?
Yeah, that runs parallel to the tracks.
I
It's
think
gotta
that
be at
one,
least 40 years old.
I think that one's 10,000 feet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the number I thought it was about that. I thought it was about 1.2 million if we would ever have to replace that.
Yeah. It's 10,000 feet. That's about correct. And that's the one that's right along the railroad tracks that obviously is under, it's that thing's really old. It might be older than that, Harry. It might be more like 60 years. Let me tell you, I'll put it this way. When Suez sold it, what they told the town was the one item that is the most at most risk for the entire system was that force main. The other ones, the pump stations were relatively okay, but that force main, may have reached the end of its life. So obviously that force main evaluation is going to tell us a lot because that's where the pump station is going to go. The other one is going to be a little bit less risky, but it still needs to be done. So I would, Janelle, do me a favor, just share all the information you can with everybody, including
Yep.
Howie, and then make sure that we plan it and then we get a schedule back from Ferraro so we know what they're doing and how they're going to address it. So I this whole thing about, we don't work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's like, no, you're working on Tuesday and Thursday or you're not going to do the job. So that's not even tolerable. So it's like ridiculous. It's like you're going to leave us hanging. And there's a lot of planning here. And what I don't want to have happen is a lot of finger pointing and say, well, you were supposed to do this and that the contractor was supposed to do that. So we need to oversee it. So any other questions about the force main evaluation or the pump station?
Yeah, you did mention the need for careful coordination, Mike, and so I'm just, do we have adequate documentation about, how often the pumps cycle and how long we can keep them off and, in order to do an inspection? Are we planning to do this work at night? Anything like that?
No, it's during the day. And we do have, Howie can speak to this too, but we will have trucks there to handle.
Or we're pumping
any
into,
issues.
okay, we're pumping into
Trucks. Hey,
Okay.
yeah, Howie, can you answer that question? Because that's a pretty good question.
Yeah, the plan was to have 2 trucks on hand just to hold the flow, but we are going to be taking it from there and putting it in 2.
After you're
So
done.
essentially,
Yeah,
so essentially,
we do have time. Even if if a truck was in between, there's plenty of time for it in between the drop-offs.
Okay. Thanks.
any other questions about the force main evaluation? So if it goes, listen, hopefully it goes on the end of, as scheduled at the end of the month and we can get this wrapped up and then get the report back to us because it's critical to how we're going to move forward. Steve could probably use that information when designing a pump station. So. right, Steve?
Yep, and as far as the pressure gauge goes, that will be a key piece of information to verify some of our hydraulic design data for pump station 2 also.
Good. Any other questions?
Steve, when we were out on site and we did the Mountain Creek walk, we were down at the one, actually, we did several of the manhole covers, but we did have a pressure gauge there you said was still operational. You remember that?
Well, the pressure gauge going at pump station 2,
Yep.
where there isn't currently one.
Okay, there is none there.
Are you
Okay, very good.
and you may be thinking of the air release valve inside the manhole.
I am thinking of the air release valve. Thank you. Also, while we're at it, are we talking about putting another lift station up at Mountain Creek?
Mountain Creek.
Not Mount, yeah. Wasn't there some discussions about putting another lift station with the expansion they have there?
Where, in the condos, Andy?
No, where they were starting to put, well, we have new connections going on up at the top corner. I can't think of the names, but there's 2 new connections. Do we need a lift station in that area? Because somebody mentioned it.
Are you thinking of the houses going in on Alpine Drive?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
Right.
Donnell and I have been talking with the engineer and attorney for a couple of properties up there. And they are proposing a lift station similar to what is at the condos.
Okay.
You know, I guess I'll say our review for that should start shortly, but the information they submitted so far is a little lacking for what they ultimately will need to submit for something like a pump station.
Will we have to do that design work or will they take care of that?
No, they will design it. We will review it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions about working evaluation or pump station 2? If there's no other questions or concerns, we'll move on to the sewer service area subcommittee. I know I saw something prior to the meeting, and I'm going to probably defer this back to Steve. There's been you're having difficulties once again getting any reply from Paul DeMura. Is that true, Steve?
Yeah, so like there are 3 things that we were doing. One is the or 3 things that needed to be looked at, you know, by somebody, right? One was the properties which would have a valid, you know, the properties which are being left out of the sewer service area, which had a you know a legally binding site plan approval or construction permit to build something. 2 would be, which I'm not sure if we really got through that list quite yet or not, but I know we were working on it. Second one would be properties which had a approved treatment works approval, but had yet to connect, and that is probably going to be a minimal amount of properties. And then the third thing would be properties which, say for example, are, you know, which would be smoothed, you know, basically the environment, the boundary of the environmentally sensitive area would be adjusted. You know, there's a boundary right now based on something that DEP creates, be it from wetlands, from, you know, animal habitat, things of that nature. And basically in certain properties that can be adjusted where, you know, kind of, obviously it doesn't, you know, if you move it a little bit, it doesn't make a difference, right? So, and I, you know, when we last talked to Paul at the state, he indicated that he had a kind of a preliminary list, you know, and so basically probably the biggest thing that's going to make any difference to the boundaries of the sewer service area is going to be the smoothing of those properties, because I don't think there's going to be many properties that have the TWA. I mean, from what we have looked at so far, there aren't. And same thing for the site plan approvals. I'm not sure if Donnell had any luck on that or not, but I know Donnell was working with One of the township offices on that. So basically the biggest thing is going to be the smoothing. I know that Paul had started working on that already. So I was, basically I asked him for his information because I know he was working on it already, and kind of, he said he's working on it. It's the best he gave me. So,
what do you think, before I go, and because I asked Danelle for some contact information and I was going to, write something to the DEP. What do you think the holdup is from their side? They just don't want to address it. They just, like I don't get it. Like, I know, Janelle, you said you've included her, Paul's boss, and you got some reaction from them, but like to not respond to us and not to and be the holdup. I mean, because we're not the holdup. It's obviously we're not the holdup. It's the DEP's holding this. And then what do we got to do to get over that hurdle?
Because as much as we can provide these lines for smoothing, I don't think what we say matters much, because, ultimately it's Paul who wants to make, is going to be making this decision, and not me, he doesn't make the decision, but ultimately Paul, it's up to him essentially, then approved by a supervisor. So I don't know, for some reason it's not a priority. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it took over over a week to get back to you, I think.
Right.
This goes like disappearing. I think, and I think Steve is right. And before Steve came on, in my discussions with Paul in the past, with the former engineer, I thought that he had a list of properties that, could be smoothed out, right? So when Steve asked for that, it was like, he kind of ignored that you said, oh, do you have a list of properties? It was more like, well, this is what I'm asking for. This is a regulation. Like, that's not helpful.
Right.
Yeah, because essentially you gave him all this information, and he's like asking for information he already has. It sounds like he's just completely incompetent. That's what it sounds like. It's typical DEP. Like they just they're stonewall everything. Well, something, maybe I'll get involved. So I'll see what I can do. If I can contact that's why I wanted Paul's boss. I'll start with Paul's boss. And then I'll work my way up from there, because I'll reach out myself. So that's what we'll do with that. And like, if there's nothing else we can do as an MUA, Steve, the engineers done what they had to do. Like, really, the holdup is the DEP.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there's nothing that we aren't cooperating with. There's nothing that we owe him. There's nothing that that we could be doing with him to speed up the process. Right. To my knowledge, none of those things exist.
Yeah, so they just have to make a decision. They have to make a decision and make a determination about our sewers. We need to get our sewer service area map approved. It's as simple as that.
Because that's what we want. And to my knowledge, we acknowledge to them that we're giving up on the overall goal on saving that whole a whole big area of properties, and we're fine with just leaving it to those whatever properties fall into those three items.
All right.
You know what I can do. If the DEP is not going to respond to you, I know they look very unkindly about this. Maybe you need to send a letter to Senator Orho and then assembly people at the county, Space and Worth. Let them deal with it at the state level. It's a state agency. We had to do this with the Wallace property with all the dumping. We went right up to the congressman. If they don't want to respond, then you got to ask politics, get the mayor involved, and start hammering the letters and going out for the press, because Vernon cannot wait.
Yeah, I agree with Harry. I actually agree with me. Even making a phone call is a waste of time. So Danelle, I agree. Reach out to Senator Orho's office, give them all the information that we have. Describe to them, because I know what they're going to ask for. The office, they're going to go. They're going to ask you to give you all the information, summarize what the ask, which is what are you asking the DEP, and then they're going to work it through their channels to get an answer. And I think and I agree with Harry. I'm not even going to make a phone call. I think the only thing you got to do is go to our senator assembly, Hal Worth, Parker Space. They're all in the same office, and then pursue it that way. And let them connect. They have good connections down at the DEP level to move it forward. And so that's probably the only way that's going to get moved. So could you do that, Danelle?
Yes.
the only thing you can do. Thanks. You just saved me the effort of contacting them.
I mean, as I recall, I mean, we had them put it in writing, right? Like what specifically is it that you need us to address? And they gave us an email, right? That said, here's the things that you need to address. And so we've addressed them, and now it's still, you know, they're asking for something else.
I don't, you know, Chris, I don't think they're asking for anything. I think it's just being stalled out for whatever reason. And they, you know, that group or that department or, you know, Paul DeMuro or their boss needs to be motivated to move forward. And if Senator Oroho reaches out and says, this is important for the township of Vernon, you know, it's critical for Vernon, and then they're going to do what they have to do to get them to, you know, to get this approved. I think we've done everything we possibly can. We really can't do anything more. You know, we've given all the information we can. I think Carrie's right. We got to, you know, go about this, you know, more politically with our representatives. They'll get something done because I know that they will follow up, and they do have good connections with the DEP, and they do get answers. So let's just reach out to that office and see what happens.
I think the squeaky wheel will get the most grease. If we sit around and try and be polite, obviously that hasn't worked for us. So now it's time to start stepping on people's toes.
How many,
I
how many years have we been working on this sewer service area map?
Since before I came on EMUA.
I think it really started in about 2015, you know, and again, I'm going by memory. I know there was issues before the council in 2015. It was brought on a number of times. The council didn't agree with the MUA, et cetera, but it's been a long time coming. But 2023 again is right around the corner.
Yeah, but my point is how many hours we've discussed this, how many engineering hours have we spent on this? All this money we spend in the DEP sits there and it totally let us flounder. And we've complied to everything they've asked for, and this is what we get. Absolutely. I mean, let's get our congressman involved in it, but I'd probably Mike, I'm thinking here, if you make a call to him saying, how many more years is this going to take, and see, can you get it done in the next couple of weeks? And at the same time, we hit up Oroho. So I'm thinking you hit it at both sides. You make a phone call and Danelle does her thing. You do both.
Yeah, I would reach out, Danelle, to Helen Carew. So she'll move the process forward for the senator's office. I think that's our best bet as the senator's office, and those three people. It's Hal Worth, Parker Space. Those are our representatives. They represent Vernon. They'll understand when we give them all the information, what it means to us, and then they'll have to do they'll get something done, you know, and I think that's the only way. Take it from me, Andy. It is so hard to get the DEP to do anything. And if you have to, if you're in the profession and dealing with them on a daily basis, it's incredibly frustrating. So it's, you know, I think we'll get a result with Senator Oroho, and we need to reach out to them and plead our case to them and see, and they have good contacts. They'll move it to the right people. And then what will probably happen is if it gets to the right people from that office, it will probably hear within a month after that, maybe less.
Nice.
Let's hope so.
I hope so. That's all we can hope for. All right, good. Moving on to solid waste stormwater subcommittee. Anything to report on that?
I had a conversation with Jean Murphy on solid waste since back when we had brought this up last year. She had mentioned that she had done some research with, within the community. And back at the time, she indicated she thought it was a non-starter. I probably need to have a little more detailed conversation with her because she was going to look through her records and see what she could dig up. But what she thought would be the biggest impediment is the fact that the lake, a lot of the community associations, lake associations and such have waste pickup built into their dues fee structure. So it might be hard to kind of to extricate that from those communities. And it might be hard to kind of get it through if all these communities are already paying for it a different way. If the town comes up with maybe if the town comes up with something that's less expensive, citizens would be in favor, but I'm not sure that would solve the issue with the lake associations.
I think you'd have to, I mean, you could bid it however you'd want to bid it. You could do the bid specs however you would want it. But yeah, you're right. You'd have to do some research to see if, it would be beneficial to the lake communities if it was less expensive, if it would reduce their fees, but, you kind of wouldn't know that until you went out for bid, so.
Right, because it's the idea is they have individual contracts with vendors, you'd have to get them to everyone, to as many people, as many parts of the community to agree to one vendor through an RFP process to lower the cost and to get that off the ground. And I mean, you could start small. I mean, you don't have to think really big for the entire township. You could just identify areas that may be able to benefit from it. And then if it's viable, then we should pursue it. And you're talking about solid waste only, right? Right, Kristen?
Yeah, at the moment, solid waste, yeah.
So if you can just gather a little bit more information, facts, and then bring it back to us. And, listen, I'm open-minded. Everyone here is open-minded. If it makes sense and we need to pursue it, we'll try to pursue it.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Kristen. Bylaw Personnel Subcommittee, anything to report about that? Dave McDermott, Andy Pittsburgh?
Basically, Danelle and I are having a discussion about some bylaw and personnel wording to be put in for the future. So Danelle, I don't know whether you want to expand on this, or should we, table that until we finish our discussions and get Dave involved in it?
Yeah, let's table it.
Okay, so we're looking at, because we have personnel on now and the way that we're moving with our employees on MUA, I think we've got to make sure we have our personnel and bylaws in that area covered in all aspects, not just following the town rules, but make sure we follow every rule there is state and whatever else needs to be done.
Yes.
Okay. That's where I'm at with that one.
Sorry, Dave, anything from you, Dave, on that, or anything you want to add?
No, but we will definitely have to make changes as time goes on, and we hire more people and do what we have to do. There's going to have to be something that fits our own organization.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. On to Water Supply Subcommittee. There's probably really nothing to report there, unless Danelle, was there any headway made with reaching out to Suez at all?
We finally heard back after like 2 months of trying to get in touch with them. We finally heard back. I mean, it's, nothing's really changed. They basically said, we just want your feedback on the 2018 agreement that we sent to you guys, which that's fine. I was hoping that we could get a meeting with them to kind of discuss. I mean, the 2018 agreement would mean that the township would be paying for all the infrastructure and every change, that was in that agreement. I don't think that's obviously in the best interest of the township or the MUA to do something like that, because it does help their own franchise area. So, I think that there's got to be some sort of middle ground that we can come to. So I know the attorney is reviewing it. I know Corey is reviewing it on the town side to make some comments, and I've already given my comments on it. So hopefully we'll have some more.
Is there like you said, Danelle, is there some kind of middle ground, like a public-private partnership that benefits both Suez and the township, where we can reach like some sort of agreement that works for both of us?
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of discussion we want to have. That's really why I wanted to meet again. I mean, the town has a unique opportunity with the money that's coming in from the feds over the next 2 years for the COVID relief, like stimulus. we're able to use it for infrastructure, for sewer and for water. Something, and we've talked about this before on the town side and the MUA, bringing water to town center is essential. I mean, how we're given such a large sewer allocation, right? How are you going to have that kind of gallonage without water? That's a key point. So bringing water to town center is a great thing to do. It's just been incredibly expensive. And the thought of spending that kind of money and charging ratepayers for it, or, the whole township to pay for that, was kind of, not as palatable. With the money coming in from the feds, we have the ability to do that, but it's still not, we don't want to give Suez the whole franchise and say, oh, and by the way, we're paying for it too. That's, there's got to be something in the middle. And I think there will be. It's just a matter of talking it out, and they want to see our comments on the actual agreement.
Don't forget, we own the pipes under Main Street, those dry water.
That's right.
mains.
Right. So essentially what would happen is we've given them the franchise area for out front, of town hall. So we did allow them to have that franchise area, but there's a whole other area going along that roadway, the dry water lines in front of Acme. They don't have access, there's no lines there right now, but that could be a franchise area, right? If we extended water lines that way. So like I said, there's a lot of not a lot, there's a good number of improvements that need to be made. It's a few $1 million. And if it's going to benefit them, it shouldn't be only the township that's paying for it.
Right. And I think that's what you need to do. I think you need to, I know they get frustrated because it's like, well, what do you want? What does the township want to do? I think the MUA is willing to take the lead on this and act like, because we're obviously involved with sewer. We're just taking on the responsibility of water supply. I think it's not to try to get another meeting with them, and then get the basis of the meeting would be what does that agreement say, and then then we have to decide from our side, from that agreement, what are we willing to do, and then what do you think that Suez can possibly do? Now I remember the last meeting they did mention, and I did hear this. They said that they were willing to do a water main extension down 515 and then circle around and connect it to CVS. Well, that's a pretty big benefit if they're willing to pay for that, and they're willing to put the money up to do that. But obviously, if they're going to put money up and invest in any kind of infrastructure, it has to benefit them. So I think there has to be a common ground. So let's set up a meeting with them, with Corey and the subcommittee, and then we'll have a Zoom meeting and try to hammer out the details.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to definitely bring in the town because they own those mains.
Yeah.
And the franchise is theirs.
Well, that's why Corey's there, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just have to go through the mayor and make sure the mayor approves Corey being there.
Right. So obviously, Harry, Corey's involved. He's a town engineer. He's the one that's going to represent the town, right?
Oh yeah, and he knows all the issues. He's been sitting on these meetings since like 2013, 14, so he's well aware of it.
Right. So, like anything, we want to move. Like Danelle says, we want to move it forward because it's a benefit for the township and it's a benefit for the MUA. If you don't, it's really is like Danelle said. If you don't have water, you're not going to have sewer. So that's pretty simple. And there's no way you can drill a lot of wells. There's not much allocation up here in Vernon. So they have the allocation, they have the water, where we have to, strike some kind of deal with them that makes sense for both of us.
Danelle, when are comments, was there any discussion of when comments are due back?
I don't believe so. Tony just said that, he was looking for the comments for the township, but I will touch base with Corey and put a timeline on that. If we can get that done in the next week and a half.
Yeah.
Can you resend that 2018 agreement out, Danelle? And then,
sure.
And then
Yep.
for comments, so we'll give everybody an opportunity to read it and comment. Because I think if someone sees something in there, it might be helpful. So. All right, good.
For now, we'll say by the 22nd. Comment back by, within the week.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, so get the comments back to Danelle pretty quickly, try to turn this around so we can move forward.
And then we want to make sure that Corey or the town doesn't reply before they receive our comments.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll
Yeah.
touch base with Corey. I'll let him know that I've sent, and the mayor, and let them know that I've given the agreement over to the MUA so that they can review it for any comments. And we'll get back to him by the end of next week.
Great.
Thanks. Anything else on that? Anybody, any other questions about that? The finance subcommittee, I don't think there's, unless Andy, do you have anything to report?
We just got an email from Danelle. You got something you need to sign, and then we have something else we need to talk about, Danelle? An audit? Scheduling
I'm
the
sorry.
audit?
Yeah,
We
so
have to
once I get the signature from Mike, then our audit should almost be done. It shouldn't take more than like a week or so to finish the audit.
Right, and then we'll look at the audit after that comes back, right?
Yep, then we'll review the audit in the subcommittee, and then we'll have a meeting, and it'll go before the board for approval.
So Mike, we're waiting on your signature.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Come on,
perfectly
buddy.
aware of that. Yeah, right. Are you in your office tomorrow morning, Danelle?
I actually have an emergency dental appointment, but it will be here for you to sign.
Just leave it there for me to sign and give it to somebody and shove it in front of my face when I walk in.
No problem.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
All right, on to the new business, number 10, RFP for emergency services, Sussex Borough. Just to give everybody a background on that, we're with all the potential emergencies, we want to anticipate these in the future. So we put together an RFP, and Danelle, why don't you? I don't know who did this. Was this Steve? Did this?
It was Steve. Yeah, Steve did it. Yeah.
All right. So Steve, I just go over. I read it. I reviewed it. I think it covers everything. Is there anything you want to add? Does anybody have any questions or had a chance to read that? But I think Steve did a great job. Anybody have any questions about that? I think the only other piece to this is that we want to do this kind of arrangement with Sussex Borough to help them out with similar type repairs, because they're in the process of putting out an RFP too. I know, Danelle, why don't you explain? You reached out to I know you said this before, but you reached out to the engineer.
Yeah. So Bob Halliwick put me in touch with their engineer. He reached out to us, and I sent him over our draft RFP. Obviously, all of there's a lot of other stuff that has to go into an RFP. So, but we have the basics that we really need in it. So I sent it over to him, and I said, we basically just need to know if this fits Sussex's needs. If there's other things, please, add them or let me know what needs to be added. So once that's done, I've already sent over our initial draft RFP to our QPA, who's going to review and make sure that everything is squared away. And then all we have to do on the board side is we need to pass a resolution. Sussex needs to pass a resolution to do cooperative pricing. And once that's done, we can post it and get some quotes.
And so one thing that wasn't in there, well, I know Donnell had commented on a pumper truck, but aside from that, like all the administrative stuff, like forms and this and that, that wasn't in there. I wasn't sure if that would be coming from us or the purchasing or where that part would be coming from.
What do you mean? Oh yeah, all the forms. Yeah, that'll come. That's why I sent it over to Tom, because he has like a standard
I figured.
Yeah, template for that. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So Danelle, just what you need to get from I guess it's PCI, the engineer for the borough. You just need to get a list of assets and what's going to go on there. I would not include the water treatment plant. I would only include the pump station and their mains and their sewer lines and maybe their water lines, but I would not include the water treatment plant. It's too complicated and it'll muddy the waters. So if you do the pump station, which is similar to ours, and the force main and work, and get a list of assets from them. If they want to do it, I think what else you got to do when you reach out to them, give them a deadline to respond, and say if you don't, you need to respond by this date, because what we want to do is by the next meeting, finalize. We want a resolution to finalize it for the next meeting.
Yep, agreed. All right, so I'll reach out to him and I'll give him the end of next week. I mean, it shouldn't take that long to put together. We basically have, I mean, the format is there. You kind of, they're going to need probably exactly what we have. They just need their list of assets, which they should have, so.
Right, exactly. Any questions from anybody on the board what the intention here and why we're trying to do this? So I think it's a good idea because and this is the reason why emergency rates for contractors are very expensive. When you get it, bids like this, you lock them into pricing that is reasonable, and we'll be able to over the next couple of years afford save a lot of money to doing it in this fashion, because emergency anybody who does contractor work, it's expensive if it's emergency. The contractors want it to be emergency. They don't want so this is a better way to manage all the repairs that may happen. All right, good. Any other questions about that? All right, discussion SCUMA connection fees. Danelle, is this related to Brian's memo or?
Yes.
I made a request to Brian Tipton, and it was actually based on John Perry, who was the former chair. I had a conversation with him a week ago about connection fees, and he had and when he was on the board, and Dave would probably remember this, there were a few questions about connection fees and where they all originate, and where they come from, and whether they were proper and they were above board, and they were because the connection fees are pretty expensive, whether it's coming from SCUMA or the township, and I'm a pretty big believer in looking into it. And John said this, and I think other people agree. We want to make this affordable for people to connect. So he put together a pretty detailed legal memo. I don't know if I know I sent this out, but I don't know if anybody had a chance to review it.
I did read it.
What I gathered from the technical memo is that they can, SCUMA, what didn't make any sense to me, and Steve might be able to help me out here, because what didn't make any sense to me is that, like if a business wants to connect to the Vernon Township's MUA main, right, sewer main, they pay a connection fee. Why do they pay a connection fee over to SCUMA for the same connection? And he says there is precedence. That other townships and MUAs have done it. It just seems like it's a bit excessive. So, I think what I'd like to do, and I do want to make this an agenda item, and I want people, the MUA to look into it, is somehow address these connection fees. So I want to get everybody's feeling on what we're trying to do.
I think that we as a unit had discussed that once before about possibly doing away with connection fees or giving a grace period for it to enable more people to hook up. Mike, I think that was you and me, and it was under this administration pretty much that we talked about it.
So basically, what you're saying, Dave, is maybe we can't do anything about SCUMA's connection fees, but we can do something about our own connection fees.
Sure, I know we talked about it. Can't remember exactly.
Well, other MUAs. You've been on the MUA a long time, Dave, and I know other people before us have talked about it too, because we need to make it affordable. So I want to get. I think it's worth pursuing. I want to get everyone's feeling on this, and I want some feedback. If I'm totally wrong, and this is not worth pursuing, then we should drop it. But if it's worth pursuing, and then do something about it, we need to maybe, if we're going to address it, we'll address it in bylaws, bylaw changes. Yeah. But this is quite a process, and there's an implication if you start doing this. you know? And what do you
Sure.
think, Harry? I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot.
I
but
think
What's your feeling?
the whole thing with the connection fees is going to be based on the debt service. I think they figured out it's tied into the EDUs and you got to meet that debt service.
Well,
So,
there's
go
that.
ahead, Andy.
Long-term bonds. Again, I don't have it in front of me because I know we pursued this several years ago about lowering these connection fees.
Here's something that I had a comment about when I was reviewing Brian's memo. There were two things that stood out for me in looking at the connection fees with SCUMA and how it is in the agreement that we made with them in 2005. They basically say that it's supposed to be for, like you said, for the capital expenditure. Now, right now, the connection fee they're charging, they're taking 60% of that, and essentially they keep it for us, which I don't really understand, but they keep it for us in a rate stabilization fund, which, as you know, we've used every year to try and stabilize our rates as they're skyrocketing. That 40% though, they're keeping 40% and it's supposed to be for that capital infrastructure. But my question is, we're paying for capital expenditures, right? We have a huge capital expenditure bill. We always talk about the 1.5 million in a couple of years, right? But we not only have that bill, we also have a capital expenditure bill that's listed as a general expense on our annual billing. So I don't know what this 40% goes to be honest. I don't know. And it would be interesting to see Brian at the end of his memo, he said that SCUMA may charge its own connection fee as long as it does so in a fair and equal manner amongst its participants in the system. So I think it might be a good idea. I might be reaching out to Franklin and a couple of the other towns in the Upper Wallkill system to see what their connection fees were for the past, you know, what their the ratepayers connection fees have been from SCUMA over the past however many years.
And Danelle, that's an excellent point, and that's what I'm focusing on is whether these connection fees are fair and they're equal to other municipalities. And I first of all we should try to find that information because if you turn around and the connection fees are the same for Franklin or Hardiston or Sparta or Sussex, then I can say, oh, these are fair. But I'm not sure if they're fair and reasonable. So I think that's worth looking into. So anybody else?
I'm in agreement because Danelle and I spoke about this a little bit and having a comparison of the other towns of what their fees are, but also understanding the distribution of the connection fees, where the costs go and where they're banked. I don't think we've ever had a clear explanation of that. I don't know, Harry, if you have any better understanding of the 40 and the 60%, but this whole memo here just reeks of a lot of questions of where do those funds go?
Yeah, and I agree. Well, it tells you how they're calculated, and it refers back to the agreement. He says it's perfectly legal. It's just whether it's fair, and it's always been whether it's fair. And I think what you need to do, Danelle, is I'd like you to try to reach out to every town that's in that Upper Wallkill system that contributes to SCUMA, is to get a survey of what their connection fees are. That's a great first start because if you don't have those facts, you can bring that back to the MUA and we can compare what we're paying for other towns. And I think once we have those numbers, then we can start talking about addressing changes in the bylaw, whether we can, whether we obviously can't do anything about the SCUMA connection fee, but we may be able to do something about our own. And I understand it's a slippery slope because, you start, charging less money for connection fees, that impacts the financial operation. But I mean, if you want to attract new customers, you're not going to attract them with $10,000 service connection fees.
Ideally a connection fee. If we were dealing with a regular utility for a township, a connection fee is going to be based on the actual capital expenditure. and what that looks like. And obviously that's broken out over time, and it's estimated, based on interest rates and all that other stuff, right? But that's what the connection fees are supposed to be based on. So addressing ours and making it in line with those, that's more than reasonable and fair.
Mhm.
And I think this is why the redevelopment study and the plan was so important, because once everything is passed, the mayor has the opportunity to negotiate a pilot, and money they save could help them pay for their connection fees.
Yeah, and that's,
I mean, if you can't lower them, we're just trying to find another avenue to attract development, and that was one of the ones, the payment in lieu of taxes. And that would be up to the mayor to negotiate, and every developer, it's a separate negotiations. I mean, Newton's been very creative in their pilots in the last couple of years.
Hey, Harry, so you can roll in connection fees into that whole program?
Well, if they're saving money, if they save money at one point, say on the taxes, they can roll that money. They'll have additional capital put into the connections fees.
Right. All right, let's go out, Danelle, go out and get that survey done.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about it at the next meeting.
Right.
Any other comments before we move on from that agenda item? All right, next is Danelle, old business, Vernon Valley investors discussion.
Yeah, I wasn't sure
over
if you
that?
guys wanted to discuss more of, we kind of discussed this last time about the slippery slope of adjusting vacancies, whether the board really wanted to do something like that. I don't know if it's just something you guys wanted to continue to discuss at this meeting, or, maybe do some research and we'll come back to a discussion like this.
I think, I don't know, what do you think? If we just, if we were looking at doing something like this, and it is, we all seem to agree that it's slightly a slippery slope, can't we just have a vote whether we want to pursue something like this, or and have a discussion and vote and say, we're not interested in doing this, or how do you want to, what's the best way to handle it? I mean, there has to be some kind of answer. We have to have some kind of answer back to Acme, and based on our discussions. And if our decision is that, we're not going to lower EDUs, for whatever reason it is, if we lower it here, we're going to have to lower it for other commercial properties or residential properties. And we may have a difficulties meeting our financial obligations. If that's the decision, then we need to make that decision.
I think we need to have a dialogue with Rich Werner on this before we move any further along on that discussion. And also with other things that we're working on, I think we need to table this until we get through those other pieces. That's my opinion.
I agree with Andy. I know he's not on the call. Danelle, could you reach out to Rich and then and draft some kind of legal, if look at it and give us a recommendation from his point of view, and then distribute that to all the board, and so we can make a decision at the next meeting.
Okay. In the meantime, I know that the gentleman from Acme has been pretty on top of, he wants to know what's going on. I think it's up to the board, but if it's okay, if he does reach out, I'll just let him know it's something that we're still discussing. And then I might have, never mind. I was just going to say, I'll just let him know we're still discussing it.
Let's talk to Rich.
I think it's best to get a legal opinion and something in writing from Rich for the board members to make a decision at the next meeting. And I think that's fair and reasonable. So you can, if he does call and ask, you say, we're getting legal opinion from our attorney, and we're going to make a decision at our next MUA meeting, and we'll let you know what that decision is.
Okay.
That's a clear answer.
I think, Mike, just part of my opinion here is that we need to be fair and equal to everyone, not just, and we want the businesses to thrive. we've got to make sure that we do this balanced and adjust accordingly. I mean, we've had them go out there. We've had our people go out there, Steve, and look at this situation, and they also have some ownership on that. So I think we need some advice here before we move further along with this. And as I said, we're trying to adjust a lot of things, we haven't raised the rates this year. We're trying to see if we can flatten the rates and hopefully in the future do something more to expand the system so we can distribute the cost and get the rates maybe down. I mean, that's the goal sometime in the future, I hope, but let's see. That's why I really don't want to make any moves here at this point.
No, I agree. Does everybody agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Agree.
Proceed with due
Sounds good.
diligence and slowly.
All right, let's get his feedback and we'll decide the next meeting. Danelle, number 11, do you want to do an administrator update or a licensed operator update first? Which one do you want to do?
If it's cool, I'm gonna go first this time. Just a couple of things. One, we updated the website with resolutions now from our that are linked to our agenda. So that's the first time that's been done, and now it's in line with what the township does. So that's a positive thing. We also received the connection fees for the failing buildings, so I'll be sending that info over to SCUMA so they can calculate and then charge them their fees, and then they'll be able to move forward with their actual connection with the building department. The application for Snowshoe and Alpine was received. Steve is working with the applicant on that. I know they have to give us some, I think, updated plans or stuff or something, but I do know that before it comes to the board, we do need preliminary planning board approval for those. I think it's 4. Is it 4, Steve? 4 homes? It plans for 3. I don't remember.
Steve is muted.
Terrible.
Yeah, currently, I believe the plans that were submitted so far had 2 homes going to a pump station and 1 connecting via gravity.
Right, okay. And I know that one of them has to actually go before the land use board for approval. I think the other ones do not. They're pretty straightforward. They don't require anything extra. So, but we do need those approvals before it comes before our board. So I'm hoping that those move quickly so that we can include them in the sewer service area with the DEP. We already spoke about meeting with Mountain Creek, that Force Main. Pest control is coming. If you guys didn't see the review from our backup operator, we had an issue at pump station 2. Pest control was scheduled to come out at the end of last month and they did not. So Howie touched base with them today and that is scheduled. So thank you, Howie. They will be coming, I believe, next week. The panel came in from Blue Book, which Howie will probably be reporting on. That's the panel that we had ordered. We've been waiting for. Let's see what else. We should have, Steve already mentioned about having the pump station 2 preliminaries done pretty soon. So hopefully we'll get those ASAP. And regarding SCUMA, the issues that we've spoken about in the past, we should have a draft to the board either tomorrow or early next week. I spoke with Brian earlier in the week and he said we should have it any day. So that will be distributed as well for comments and stuff like that. Also, one final thing, and I just need to be clear about this. So regarding Green Realty, I do want to be clear that a couple of meetings ago, I did state that Green Realty had that building, the connection fee was paid by the former owners. As we all know, the building was owned by the Board of Education. And when I first started researching 2 years ago, when the prior director was on, I reviewed the financial software and it records the payments by block and lot. I did not realize that the Board of Ed at the time owned 2 buildings and that they paid 1 connection fee and not the other. So that is on me. I did go back after the last meeting when it was brought up to review the information. I compared it to our actual files. I even called the Board of Education to discuss to ensure that nothing was paid. So it does turn out that the building has never paid the connection fee to either the MUA or SCUMA. So I was wrong in stating that they did pay. When I did speak with the Board of Education, this is interesting. They did let me know that they actually agreed that the new owner would be paying the connection fee, but obviously it was never followed up. Now I know the board received applications in 2014, I think 2016 and 2017, The board did speak about and approve an EDU calculation of 0.75 EDUs. But after that, there's no other documentation in the folder that states that they were contacted to, follow up and get the connection fee paid. So I don't really know what happened. So again, it was my misunderstanding, misreading the information. And I was wrong in stating that the Board of Education had paid that connection fee. I did speak with the property owner about the connection fees for the MUA and SCUMA, as well as their delinquent sewer bills. So hopefully that will be moving forward as soon as possible.
Very good.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
nice.
thanks, Danelle.
Yep.
I know you sent something out, which was lots of documents, and it was, very difficult to follow. But the understanding, I just, I guess you notify the owner that they have to pay the connection fee. And in order to, they have to resolve that. And they also have to resolve their delinquent, and I just found that out today, they're also delinquent on their sewer payments. So you sent something officially in writing to them, notifying them that that's the best you can do. I've been on for a little while. I've heard different stories, and it's hard to get the straight story and the facts. So I'm glad we'd be able to straighten it out and clear it up, but go on record that we are addressing it. I think part of this is, Danelle, to be honest with you, I think this is something that wasn't taken care of in the past, and this is just cleaning up a mess that was made from previous administration. So I'm glad you straightened it out. It's not straightened out completely, but we have to resolve it. Anybody have any questions about the Green Realty issue? Because I think it's clear now for everybody what actually happened and where we're at. Anything?
I guess
Anything else?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, I guess the one thing is, do we have to go back and do a reevaluation on the EDUs? Because you said the last one you have is 0.75.
Yeah, it was 0.75 with the last application. I can go through, and again, nothing's in the file. Like there's no copy of a resolution, but I'm sure I can find it somewhere in the minutes. I'm assuming it might be the 2017, maybe the beginning of 2018. I don't know. I know there was discussion in 2017 on it. But again, the connection fees weren't paid, so I don't know where the ball dropped, and there's no I sent the file over to Mike just so he could see the correspondence and stuff in there. There's no correspondence after, I think, 2016.
You may want to review the minutes of October 19th, 2017. And I think it'll start showing you the confusion when you have Mr. Skirbo said Charles Nagy, the Green Team Realtors, has filed an application, has already made the payment, and has presented themselves as the owners of the building, but I didn't even think the deal closed at that time. So, going forward, it's going to be a very difficult task, better records. But I would recommend you read October 19th, 2017, those minutes.
And Danelle, can you share those with everybody? Because I know you sent it to me. Send it to the entire. Because that gives you somewhat of more of a history. It was discussed openly at a MUA meeting, but really the bottom line, it was never resolved, and that's part of the problem. So we're moving forward. We're moving in a positive direction. That's all that matters, right? We're resolving problems. Any questions for Danelle? Anybody have any questions, comments?
Danelle,
before we move on
to start receiving a list either twice a year or quarterly on who owes money to the MUA?
Yeah, so I actually I put together the my first quarter financial records, and I will send that to the whole board. I sent it to the finance subcommittee. I'll send it to the whole board, and I did include the delinquent list, so you can see that as well.
Okay.
And just to let you know, our delinquencies, I mean, if you can recall, was around 400,000 at the end of last year, and we did discuss how it's usually like people pay in the following quarter. not all the time, I'm not saying, but we usually have a high delinquency at the end of a quarter, and then it's resolved within, a couple of weeks. So right now, I think it currently stands at around 190,000, which is a huge, obviously, decrease from the end of last year, from our receivable at the end of last year. So that's a positive thing. We've rectified some of the big issues that we've had, which is good. So.
Well, it's been some of these LLCs that have owed us, I can think two off the hand, and I've been mentioning them at council meetings, $120,000, and we've collected it. And we now have a building department that's enforcing our ordinances that if you do not pay fees or taxes, you're not getting final inspections. You're not even going to get permits.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's the way we have to go. And I've made this statement before. The little guys got to pay, so do the corporations. Otherwise, it affects them. It affects us all.
And I agree, Harry. We have to use whatever we can do with the building department. If their sewer bills are not getting paid, then we have to go that route. And I have no problem doing that. And I tell you, it's a credit to you, Danelle, to get those numbers down. That's in the middle of a pandemic, and I know utilities are having very difficult times collecting water and sewer fees. So the fact that we're doing this in the middle of a pandemic is pretty impressive. Anything else for Danelle? We're going to move on to Howie, licensed operator report.
Mike, can I just make one more comment on bills? Danelle, I understand Mountain Creek has paid their full obligation before it was due, and that was paid before April 1st. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so Mountain Creek has done their bit. We saw it with the negotiations. And again, they are making their payments early. They are paid in full.
And they're, just to let you know too, they are incredibly responsive, like immediately, anything with regards to the pump station, anything like that, they're on top of it.
Good. It's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the points, Danelle, when I looked at the bills list is that, and the number of LLCs has reduced down dramatically on that list.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. So the numbers are coming down as a lot of smaller users, and you get a quarter here or a second quarter there. So it's mostly smaller users now. So that's a benefit that the LLCs have heard. They got to be responsible on paying their bills.
I think it's helped to remind those LLCs that they can't have short-term rental permits either.
Touche.
Good point. Howie, move on to Howie. Sorry to make you wait there, Howie. Licensed operator report.
That's okay. I'll just go right to the panels. Like Danelle said, we did get the panel in. Jem did come out. Mike did, actually, from Jem. We thought about putting the first one at La Taquette, which is the easiest one to install. He did come. He set it up there just to see if everything would connect, and it will connect. So we were going to schedule that for next week. We did have one emergency call in. That was over the weekend for Stonehill. Ended up being a clogged pump. Myself and Jimmy Schmick was in, and we took care of that. And then as we said for the ARVs, just scheduling everything, going step by step. My plan is to contact the two contractors first to see what their time frame to be here and how long it's going to take. That way I can schedule the trucks with Don from Wind River, make sure everything's set up correctly.
Howie, is there anything you need? Is there anything you need about for this? I'm sorry, you're talking about the force main evaluation?
Yeah, force main and the ARVs. Yep.
So is there anything you need from either the engineer or anybody to make this go as smooth as possible?
No, I don't need anything from them. Like I said, I'm trying it. I would rather get with Ferrero and see what their operation is going to be as to when they get there and what their procedures are going to be, how to install and take out, and what the time frame is going to be.
Hey, Howie, I can suggest is, before you start the project, just, meet out there with somebody and just go over it and just kind of like get an idea how it's all going to go, so there's no surprises.
Yes, that's my plan.
Good. Howie, go back. I had the question about you and Jimmy Schmitz responded to the alarm. Is that
Yes.
over the weekend?
Yes,
Okay. All right, thanks.
it was
I just
actually,
want to make,
it was April 9th.
but it was on a weekend.
I think that was a Friday night.
Oh, Friday night.
Yeah.
Is it,
After hours.
Howie, is it pump clogs? Do you get a lot of call outs for pump clogs?
We have not lately, no. We did get the grates in. We are gonna install the one on Stonehill to see how that one goes. Stonehill and Steamboat was our two messiest ones.
Right. No, good. All right. Other than that, though, we're in good shape. I appreciate that update. Anything else, Howie?
No, speaking of good shape, we noticed some chains that need to be replaced on the pumps. So we're doing that as well. That's in the lift stations only.
Good. Any questions for Howie? Anybody have any questions for him before we move on?
Where are we with the generators for the lift stations?
We just got, I just got an update from Steve on those so that we can go out for actual quotes.
Okay. And the capital list projects, do we have an update on that?
I'll take a look at what has already been done and what needs to be addressed. We were waiting for that panel. That was one of the big things.
But
So
that's
that we can
panels,
see
right?
how that works and then order other ones.
Did we
Yeah.
order all 5 panels or just one panel?
Just the one
Just
to make
one.
sure that that's what we're gonna need and that's what's gonna function. We don't want to order all 5 and then it's not.
Okay.
And another thing, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna
just to
say,
follow up. Hold on. I'm sorry, Danelle. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I want to just follow up what Andy says. I think everyone needs to get a list of those capital items and what's done and what's not done. And then those are periodic updates for the board. And please provide that for everybody. So we feel like we're making progress. Go ahead, Danelle.
Sorry, I'm just writing a note. Okay. We're also having our, I decided this year it's probably a good idea to start, an annual safety review. I know that the board, had a safety review done last May. So we're sticking with the same guy, Dave. He's going to come and do another safety review. I know a lot of the items, we've kind of checked off and taken care of. So that's something I'm actually looking forward to that report. But he comes out tomorrow. Oh, and the confined space training, actually, I was talking with Chuck on the township side about it, and he was saying that he thought statewide offers it, which our former risk manager never told us. So he reached out to statewide and they're doing the initial certification for free, which is great. So
Wow.
the guys are set up for May 11th for that.
Thanks.
I reached out. The only thing is, so you're supposed to have a confined space manual. We have one on the MUA, and it's, complete the way it should be. The township doesn't have a completed one. So I've reached out to Dave Smith about doing a township one because there should really be one for the whole township, inclusive of whatever confined spaces the MUA enters to. So it's one big one for the whole town, to try and work on ones, combine the MUAs with what they need for the township.
No, I agree. All right, any other questions for Howie or Danelle before we
Just have
move
one
on?
for Danelle. Danelle, the statewide that Chuck said, that's the actual 8-hour course.
Yes.
That's not just the where he comes in and just quick talk and review.
Yeah, no, I got really nervous about it too. Yeah, no, it's the whole course and they have to have the equipment and stuff that would be used there too.
Okay, then my next one was did you happen to look at the tank I sent you to see if we can get another one for confined space?
Yes.
That MSA?
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll get that ordered. It's not in tomorrow. Yeah, we'll get quotes and stuff on that and get it ordered.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Howie. Anything else for Howie or Danelle? If not, we're going to move on to number 12. Make a motion to open to the public for items not on the agenda.
Motion to open to the public for comments on nothing that's on the agenda.
Second.
All right, motion made by Andy Pittsger, seconded by Harry Shortway. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Is there anybody from the public? No.
I don't see anyone raising their hands.
No one's raising their hand. Seeing no one from the public, make a motion to close to the public.
Make a motion to close the floor to the public for public comment.
Second it.
Dave second.
All right, motion made by Harry Shortway, seconded by Dave McDermott. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Commissioners' comments, or I'm going to start with the Hollywood Squares, and Andy Pittsger's on the upper left, so you're first.
I have no comments for tonight. Just keep on the DEP. We need to get it done, get pump station 2 running.
Good. Harry Shortway.
No further comments. I think I've made enough tonight.
Kristen Wheaton.
Just one to Danelle. Yeah, good work. Keep saving us money. That risk manager, yeah, finding free confined space training, that can be really expensive, that confined space training for the full day. So good work. That's it.
Good. Dave McDermott.
Nothing to add at this time.
Good. My comments are, we are once again working very well together. We're making progress. I want to thank everybody for doing that. Everyone's contributing to this whole process. I spoke to Rich Wenner today. He even said how engaged this board is, and he likes working with us, and hopefully Steve likes to work with us too. So and want to welcome Jacqueline to the group. Nice round of applause. And with that, we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Harry Shortway, Kristen Wheaton seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No one's opposed. Have a nice night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Bye now.
Night.